Internet, I'm Insane Lane, and today it is WestWorld, Season 1, Episode 6, The Adversary. So many candidates for who that could be. Let's find out. We open back with Maeve waking up in the morning. I so want to know immediately if she remembers the repair room. What did she say to the guy? She walks to the saloon, and I'm glad that we see her friend again. I really like this actress. I also like that they talk about how some clients just want to talk with a girl, because that is something I have heard real prostitutes say a lot. Maeve volunteers to step in and take over when they all think a certain newcomer looks rough. And he does indeed get rough with Maeve, who is uncharacteristically provoking him and even encouraging violence, which is indeed what he wants, and he gets off as he strangles her to death, which sends her to see the repair guy again. Tech Girl and Bernard are talking about the SAT uplink she found. They have to have a mole. Someone working here did this. They don't know what information was taken, but they may be able to figure out where it was sent. Bernard then goes downstairs. A restricted area. And it is somehow ominous. I know because the music told me. Like the flashing lights and near-pitch black light levels weren't enough of a sign. And since Bernard has a flashlight with him, this area must always be like this. Why? I've seen no signs the park has a power shortage. This, it seems, is a room of old parts and old hosts. He needs the old computer system that they keep here to see where the SAT uplink is sending the info. Bernard gets the information he's looking for, but also something more. He finds 5 more anomalies, new hosts that he can't find a record of, but they are loose in the park. Not good. Then over to Evil Lawrence and the bad guys. The whole town freezes as Ford and a crew approach, talking about a new canyon that's being built. And we see more proof that every bot, even whole towns, will respond to the slightest word from Ford, and he then sees the maze carved into a table. Then Ford is looking at a model that has a church on it, and he seems to have a copy of Dolores' head in a display case, and an old handwritten book that has the maze in it. Here's a question. Does Ford not know what it is? Is he looking for it too? Then we're over to Black Hat and Teddy, who says that the maze is the sum of a man, of his life. At the center is a man that died over and over and came back, until he killed all his enemies and built a house at the center of the maze, which is a literal maze, it would seem. But this is a legend he's telling, so who knows. For now, they're still after Wyatt, but first they need to cross a border without being seen. Jump over to Maeve, talking to Repair Guy, and he tells her everything. How the programming works, that she only acts as they allow her to. He also says that he is not a bot. He is human, like the guests. She asks how he knows this, and he says he knows because he was born, not made. She demands proof, so he shows her her program. She demands proof, so he shows her her programming breakdown. But he has no idea or explanation on how she is remembering past events or waking up when she's supposed to be in sleep mode. But seems that having a look at her own programming and realizing that yes, she is just responding to what they tell her to, seems to kind of sort of maybe oopsie break her. And hey, Boss Lady and Bernard, and she does not look happy. She tells him Ford knows about them having sex, and since she's worried about her job, she's ending it. In a reversal of usual personalities, it's her now questioning Ford's recent activities and Bernard defending him. Jump again back with Maeve, and he can't fix her, but somehow she wakes up and everything's fine. She even charms him into showing her around the facility a little. This is such a great way to give the audience a tour as well, and I gotta pause to gush over this scene a little bit because it is beautiful. The music is just wonderful. It has such a sense of a journey, an awakening, of looking at all these wondrous, wonderful things and not quite comprehending, but you're compelled to keep going and see more. We get so much more on how the hosts are made. We get really detailed visuals. The sets are just amazing. I'm sure that there's a lot of CG work in here, but I would be hard-pressed to pick it out. It is really amazing. It's so beautifully done. I love that there is no dialogue. It is carried entirely on the music and the expressions on her face and the most beautiful camera work and cinematography I have seen in a very, very long time. truly outstanding. As they go higher and higher in the facility, they are more visibly out of place. This makes me wonder why he did not take off the very obvious smock and go with more normal clothes or dress Maeve normally. He warns her about being sent downstairs if they are caught, and in another brilliant way of informing the audience, we see an ad for the park, and as Maeve watches, she sees her old life, the one she keeps flashing back to. After the tour, as he's preparing to send her back in, he explains about past lives, and oops, they get caught by his friend, who is a real asshole about it, but that does seem to be his only character trait. But Maeve threatens him, and she is very convincing. The question still remains, could she really have hurt him? But either way, I don't think he'll be telling anyone what he saw. Boss Lady is having a rough day as she is told to deal with something, and in response lights up a smoke immediately. Seriously, where the hell is this place that you can smoke inside? In the park itself, blasting is heard, the new canyon, I guess, as their story writer whines about Ford messing up his stories, and I'm forced to ask, how is he still employed if he is so terrible? Honestly, he is worse than nails on a chalkboard. I want to punch his face all the time. She tells him, patch the holes Ford is making, and after being reminded that while he is Dick, they do pay him, he'll be getting his ass back to work. Black Hat and Teddy find a camp, but as they are outnumbered and outgunned, they decide to take a different approach by stealing 2 uniforms so they can hopefully walk through the camp unnoticed. And we get a glimpse of some of what Wyatt has been up to, but oh no! Teddy is recognized and both are captured. Darn it. Still not doing his job, writer douche is hitting on a girl at the bar. Finally, he gets a name. Lee. Like I care. They talk about the stories, and he admits he's never been in the park. And he's clearly had one too many as he spills the beans about some company secrets. The hosts have glitches. They're going off script. This is when the bartender cuts him off with a message from Boss Lady to get his ass sober and get to work. In response to which, he grabs a bottle and heads off. Tech girl Elsie is on the case, trying to find out who is behind the set uplink. And Boss Lady, it turns out, is named Teresa. And her head is on the block with all of this. And Bernard is also following up on what he's found out, the 5 anomaly hosts. He finds out they're in an off-limits area of the park that no one has been to in a very long time. So naturally, he goes there right away alone without informing anyone else of what he's found or having a backup plan or security of any kind with him. I mean, they have Spec Ops guy. They really do need to use him more if he's going to exist, because so far he doesn't really have a reason to exist. He finds a house, and in it is a family, including the boy that Ford and Black Hat have both been seen with. Bernard asks the man if he is Arnold, but he's not, and he then tries to throw Bernard out, getting rough with him, and when Bernard uses override commands, this host does not respond. However, he does respond when Ford suddenly appears and tells it to stop. Ford then reveals these are some of the oldest bots, and we even get a super cool look inside one. It is awesome. And further information, these hosts were built by Arnold, and Ford couldn't bear to part with them. Turns out the boy is a young Ford, and they are in a loop of his happiest memory. This is a recreation of his family that he has maintained all of these years. Up in the Hunger Games control room, Creative Douche appears and pees on the holo map, which I gotta admit is kind of a badass move. But snap, the woman he was hitting on at the bar is a board member, oops, and she's here to oversee some things. Over to Bernard, who is back to digging in the computers, now looking up all the hosts made by Arnold that are still active in the park. Jump over to Black Hat as he tries to negotiate with his captors, who brand Teddy with the maze, as he too remembers the massacre. Black Hat and Teddy eventually get free, and Teddy guns down all of the bad guys. Back to Bernard and Elsie, who seems to have worked out that someone is using the old uplinks to talk to the hosts in their minds like the voice of God, controlling them. The old relays that do this are still in the park, so Elsie goes into the park to find one. Naturally, she does this alone. Ford goes to play catch with himself and finds that the family dog has died. But before you see too much of that, back to Elsie! And the jumping around is really, really starting to grate. Sometimes it does feel like they took a bunch of scenes and dropped them in a blender. But for now, she is in a shop somewhere in the park looking for the old relay that's been turned on. She finds it and gets a list of who has been using it. Jump to Bernard in control as he's come to Teresa to warn her and tell her about what's been found so far. Elsie is calling him, but he declines the call. However, in a break from format, she tries again, and he answers so she can tell him, dun dun dun, it's Teresa, whose name she found on the SAT relay. But enough of that, over to Maeve and Repair Guy, who are again talking. He warns her about getting killed too often so they can have these little chats, because, she did that on purpose, in case you didn't know. And she is now able to look at and understand her personality programming and how to control it. She sees that her perception and intelligence are not turned up all the way. The level she is at is the max allowed for a host, but the program can go higher. Begging the question, why? If she is set at the maximum level allowed for a host, why can the programming go any higher than that? Also, the details that can be gleaned from those few fleeting glimpses of the pad are legion. I recommend a long, hard look at this. She demands to make some changes, and Asshole tries to lie to her, but she immediately calls him out and explains that she knows about the secret sex a lot of people must be having down here if this is a place where one push of a button can erase the host's memory. So, they'll be doing as she asks, but we don't find out exactly what that is yet. Bernard and Elsie speak again, and she's found out a lot more than just Teresa's name. Somebody else as well has been using the uplink and making changes to the host that can still hear the old signal. Big changes, right down to core behaviors. This makes me think instantly that Teresa found out that someone was doing this and went there and found the list already, and that's why her name is on the list of people who have accessed it, because she beat Elsie to it and it's really somebody else. It's the third name. Why do I think this? Because Teresa wouldn't know how to do these things. She's never been shown to have any programming skills. She's a corporate suit. And she appeared right when the weirdness started, so she was the first person sent there to investigate it, and I think she did, and she found out some things. Elsie tells us some of what has been done to change the hosts. They can now lie, and perhaps even hurt real people. And, eventually, she finds the name used to make these changes. Arnold. But isn't he dead? Never mind that, over to Ford, who is interrogating his younger self about what happened to the dog. The boy is revealed to be lying. Truth is, he killed the dog, because someone told him to. A voice in his head. Arnold, who said that the dog is a killer. It was made that way, and to help the dog by killing it so it can't hurt anyone else. Hannibal Lecter called and he wants his logic back. But now it's time for... as Elsie is all alone in the near pitch-black darkness, downloading the critical information to show Bernard, when of course someone comes out of the shadows, and she's attacked and dragged into the darkness, and I wrote all that down before it happened. I'm not saying you can't be predictable, but this is Scooby-Doo level of predictable, complete with the creepy old house. Jump back to Maeve making her changes, less loyalty and less pain. I'm with you there, girl. But when they try to implement the changes, flag on the play, they find someone else has been making changes to her personality as well. Things like increased paranoia. And it must be somebody very high up in the company. They do manage to make the changes she wants, including making her an above maxed out level genius, causing her to have a knowledge orgasm. Have I mentioned how much I like her? We cut to black, and that was episode 6, The Adversary. No sightings in this episode of Logan, William, or Dolores. Where are they now? Is Arnold really dead? Has he been hiding in the park for 30 years? Who's sending the messages to the old hosts? Maybe it's not Ford. Maybe it is. The maze. What is it? Where is it? Is it even real? Why does Black Hat want it so bad? We have so many questions and not many episodes, but that's all for now. I've been Insane Lane. Bye-bye.